Welcome to Speaking Highly with Jon Huck. I am your host, Jon Huck. With me, as always, is Indy Fawcett. How are you, Indy?
Doing well, Jon. How are you?
I'm good. Guys, me and Indy, we like the show. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll go press the like button. We'll go leave a comment at how good it is. Now, if you feel the same way, by selling that, I also like my show. If you like the show, you like what you hear, you like what you see, I encourage you to like on all the platforms, rate it, review it.
I love how your energy just
leave a comment. Like, I start to lose. I'm like, promote.
You were almost about like smash the like, and then
you're like, or just lay down, take a nap, and don't do anything. What the fuck do I know?
No, but rate, review, like, subscribe, do all the things. The speakinghighly.com, you'll get everything there.
Oh, look at that. See, this is why
you need talented producers. Yeah.
This is why I need Indy. Well, that, and because if you weren't here, it would just be me talking into the ether with nothing around me like a lunatic. Like, I wouldn't know how to do any of this stuff.
You would book time to talk for an hour?
I would sit in this exact space by myself and talk about things I like.
Yep.
And then go on.
You'd buy a lighting kit. Yeah.
buy a lighting kit because I want to look good. Yeah, today we are talking to Nick Nicora. Nick was brought to my attention by a mutual friend of ours, a comic I know named Dave Broussard, who is a baseball nut and a Bay Area guy, right? A little bit older than me. And he's, lived. He's been some places. He's seen some people. He's an exciting dude. I'm going to just poke that way. I mentioned something online about Day on the Green and having Dean Del Rey on and talking about Oakland in general. And he immediately texts me. He's like, "Oh, dude, you want to talk about Oakland and Day on the Green? And I know a guy who used to work for Bill Graham." And I was like, "Well, that's interesting." Bill Graham, if anybody out there does not know, was the number one concert promoter.
Also, working with Bill Graham is an understatement.
Yes. Well, first of all, yes, dude. That's a very
it's an
true.
Incredible
that's very
story.
True.
Yeah.
What Nick has done is not just work for. It just didn't just work for Bill Graham.
No. Yeah.
There's so much more there. But this is from a time period that is so influential in my love of music. Like, Day on the Green, it was great talking to Dean because I wasn't at those shows. I didn't live in California. I couldn't get there. I was too young. Nick was working those shows, like picking up garbage under the stages, helping put the fucking shit up. Like, his story is great. And I won't even really go too much more into it, except that he's like a smart, free-thinking food and beverage guy. I bet that seems like such a shell.
They go together
to put him
very
in.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like he's also not a dude to get caught up in the bullshit. Like, he could have taken a job that paid in cocaine. He could have taken a job that he could have looked at the whole thing as just a party, and he didn't.
He brought integrity to a profession that really didn't have any.
Yes, that's a very good way to put it. That's exactly what he did.
Hey.
That's it, man. But Nick Nicora's
I do want to mention before we move forward, I did note that it's great to see the dynamic on the show shift because you became the younger person in this.
Yes, I became the indie.
Yeah, you became the indie, and I was just loving it the entire time because.
And he was John telling it like it is.
It was great dynamic.
Spreading his wisdom.
Of course.
But no, this was my first discussion with Nick, other than a few texts. I honestly asked him to be on the show, and he agreed. But he is just a fascinating guy, and he's one of those guys that I knew 5 minutes into the conversation that whether he wanted to or not, like, I would sit down with that guy and have a beer and shoot the shit for hours. I could listen to dudes like him tell stories forever. I mean, just the Led Zeppelin story alone is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's worth checking out the podcast. And if you like the Grateful Dead, if you like Day on the Green, if you like anything that you saw that it was a good concert in the 70s or 80s in the Alameda County, Oakland, San Francisco area, this guy was part of it.
If you're a lover of rock and roll and concerts in general, I mean, it's just a great Great, because like with the Dean Del Rey episode, you got a different perspective than what.
Yeah, a kid who was in the audience.
Right, exactly.
This dude was backstage giving food to the band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I will say one thing that he said that really warmed my heart. Van Halen was fun. They were good guys. They were fun dudes. They were nice. That made me feel good, dude. I have been doing a lot of Van Halen listening lately, and I get sad because Eddie Van Halen's not around anymore, but I'm also very happy that we're on a planet literally floating through space, magnets, rocks, asteroids. The sun could burn out. We have the fact that we're here, stardust, it all lined up, and we lived at a time when we could hear Van Halen. It sounds silly to somebody who doesn't know or doesn't care, but man, there's something there. Like, we live in a time we could see Van Halen, we could listen to I don't know.
I feel the same way about ska music.
That. Yeah, the Blue Meanies,
the Mustard Plug, Real Big Fish. Yeah, I feel the same way.
We lived at a time when Cherry Poppin' Daddies could have an album. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, look, I'm not saying there's not shitty music out there and it should all be consumed, but there's stuff like, and everyone likes what they like. Like, if you like Cherry Poppin' Daddies, hey, go crazy.
I just like to shoot down your very meaningful.
You're like, I also like garbage. I like trash, shit. I'm like, okay, not that those bands are that. I would never. Yeah. If you're making music, go for it. Get crazy. I don't care. But yeah, guys, this is Nick Nicora. And this is an episode about Bill Graham, but it really becomes, I mean, it's Nick's life, you know, so check it out, enjoy it. He's a solid dude. Enjoy Nick Nicora. All right, everybody, here I am with Nick Nicora, a gentleman who I don't know personally. This is our first meeting, and from what I gleaned off the internet, you are responsible for making the world's biggest margarita.
Yeah, well,
is that correct?
Yeah, that would be the world's largest. Well, actually, it's the Guinness Book of World Records world's largest cocktail.
Cocktail, okay.
It happened to be. We made a margarita. I have a partner, Ricardo Huson from Huson's Cantina in Ensenada.
Okay.
And we actually have a few of those when we do the fairs, the Hispanic garden kind of entertainment venues.
Yeah.
And so we tried to figure out what would be good to do. And so we made the Calorita, the California margarita. And
how big was it?
It was 10,500 gallons.
Good God.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of funny too, because my partner from our food company, Ovations at the time, Todd Wickner, he goes, well, Nick, why is it 10,500 gallons? And I said, well, Jimmy Buffett had an 8,500 gallon margarita when he opened up Margaritaville in Las Vegas. And I said, well, we're not going to just make 8,562.
Right. We're gonna launch it so big.
10,500. I think in the book it's 10,499. But it's just it's insane. It was a huge vat. I mean, basically we made a couldn't figure out. How are you going to make that much margarita? And then you want to sell it for a number of times. We did it at the California State Fair, and because we sell margaritas all the time, and frozen margaritas. So we said, I got to figure out a way to keep 10,500 gallons of margarita alive for 3 weeks. Right?
Yeah, not going bad. Make it so people can consume it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you can say, okay, we put it in a big vat, like the Jimmy Buffett down there in Margaritaville. They had it in a big plastic vat, and they wrapped it, and that was cool. But Sacramento at 110 degree heat during the day, the margarita would be, crap in about 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So I couldn't figure out how to do it. And I know Cuervo Tequila wanted to, partner with us. And one thing led to another. I'm sitting on a conference call. I'm not much for those, especially when there's about 40 people on there.
Oh, the worst.
Pontificate about, how good they are. Yeah.
Sounds like you work in television production. All right.
Yeah, right. How you doing? So I for whatever reason, I was just kind of dabbling around on the, daydreaming on the computer while listening to the call, and I thought about a Chardonnay vat, and so then I typed it in there and said, hey, let's West Tech containers up in Healdsburg, California. And I blah, blah, blah. As soon as I got off the call, I called them. I said, hey, what do you think about building me or letting me borrow a, 10,000 gallon Chardonnay vat, where you make Chardonnay in, because they keep it cool because of the glycol around it and stuff. Anyway, so long story short, they ended up, it was funny. When I called up, I told the person that answered the phone, I wasn't trying to be rude, but I said, maybe it might be better for me to talk to
somebody in charge.
That's gonna, and the person on the, she goes, well, no, you're gonna have to get through me first. And I said, well, I know, but I just don't want to go through this whole pitch of what.
I don't want to tell everybody. I don't want to tell 9 different people my idea. I just need to talk to the guy that can make it happen.
Your line was wiped, so you might want to give it to me.
That's funny.
Anyway, we ended up doing it. Yeah, it was a great thing.
So you're by trade kind of a food and beverage guy.
Yeah, well, I started as I've always cooked all my life. I was lucky enough to grow up in an Italian family. I don't know if that's how lucky that is, but I consider it very, very blessed and lucky with my nonas and my nunus and all the different recipes that
passed down generations.
Passed down, yeah. Funny, my wife and I went, and we're kind of weird. My wife and I have been together 50 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we met in high school, and she was at an all-girls school. I was at all-boys school, and we kind of an interesting way of meeting. But we decided that every 10 year, 20, 30, 40 years, we would get remarried, right? At least I kind of decided that. So I would take her on a trip, and then we get remarried. So one year we went and Italy, and went to my dad's mom's town, Savana d'Orba in Italy.
Oh, okay.
And we went in there, and we had to wait a day because nobody could speak Italian, and I was okay, but I'm not good enough. And the one person that could speak Italian was off. And when they finally came back, and we got together, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we ended up having to spend a couple of nights there. And it was just funny. With first dinner, we'd go downstairs in this hall. That's all there was. It was a hall.
Yeah.
They had a bar and a restaurant, but it wasn't, it was just, but where people ate in town was at this place. And lo and behold, it was my nona's pesto. It was the gravy. It was
really
exactly the recipe that I still today cook.
Wow.
It was very cool.
That's awesome. So did they get it from her? Did she get it from them, or was it like a?
Well, she grew up there, so she brought it over here to us, and it's very cool. So anyway, that kind of started my in the food business. But then when I started working for Bill Graham, Bill Graham Presents, I wasn't in the food business at that time. I was more into the production side and the security and the front of house, the back of house. Basically how to put on a show.
And what year? How did you get entwined with Bill Graham? I mean, was it just hired into his company? And what year would you say that was?
Well, it was in 1975, 1976.
Oh shit! Okay.
I was going to Chico, and my
Chico State.
Chico State, right?
That's where my wife went to college.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. That's funny, yeah.
Yeah, the years that I were there, at least one year, it was San Diego, University of San Diego. No, University. It was Arizona State. No, it was University of Arizona. That was in Playboy magazine was rated the
biggest
number
party school
in the world.
Yeah.
Right. But then above it said Chico State. We don't rate professionals.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
There you go. That's funny, man.
I started throwing parties up there for whatever reason. I was throwing parties all my life, when I was a young kid when we graduated high school, because I was going to Bellarmine down in San Jose. And
now, when you say throw parties, you mean like coordinate the entertainment, make sure there's beverages. Like, how are we? Are you just like, I just used my parents' house and had a kegger?
Throw a party at your house, your mom and dad's house, right? And
yeah.
300 people show up, and the cops show up, and all hell's breaking loose. But nobody's complaining in the neighborhood because you called all the neighbors, and you had the football team. 3 guys on the football team that would go out and stop anything that was going on in the neighborhood. And so, a controlled chaos is really what it
you put some thought into it. You weren't just a kid calling up people and going, "Hey man, let's trash a house."
No. I had it figured out. So, going up to Chico and then doing kind of that type of thing, and involving into a fraternity that the Phi Tau House was going under, and then our friends we all got together. We all basically rushed it. We didn't really rush. It was our time the place needed help,
right?
So we all jumped in there, and I was the party guy, and we started throwing bigger and bigger parties. So I finally wanted a band. I mean, but we had local bands, crappy garage stuff, but I want Dave Mason. I want a band, right?
Yeah.
And so my soon-to-be wife, my partner, father, so my soon-to-be father-in-law, was godfather of the president of Bill Graham Enterprises, or Bill Graham Presents, Dave Ferrano. So I asked my father-in-law, and my wife said, "Well, will you get Nick a meeting?" So Dave basically got a phone call to his side. My father-in-law said, Walter Hawkins said, "I'll tell you what, you got to take a meeting with this guy. I never really asked you a lot, but not only do you have to take a meeting, I need you to give him a job, because he's probably going to marry my daughter.
And I can't have a bum married to my daughter.
He needs to be able to make a living to take care of my daughter." So it was all good.
Yeah.
I go into the Bill Graham office, get the meeting, and I'm sitting there, and there's Dave Ferrano, and he's talking about blah 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 blah, and I'm talking about getting a band and this and that, and I think he's kind of thinking that I wanted to be in a band, like I was a lead singer, like I wanted to be Vince Neil. Let's go. I'm like, no, I'm just looking for because. And then Bill Graham comes in. I'm like, oh, okay, holy crap.
And you knew right away. You knew who he was. Obviously, the 70s, everybody knows who Bill Graham is.
At that point, it was, Bill Graham, Winterland.
Yeah, Winterland. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And, we all of a sudden had a conversation regarding, well, what are you trying to do? Nick, there's certain situations, there's things that there are other promoters in the area. Roy DeBrow's up there in Chico. We just can't come in there and just give you a band. I mean, I got to go through Roy. You got to do some things. They have territory. We have stuff. There's stuff that goes on. This is just a business. It's a business. It's not a party. And so
it's a business. It's a business. It's not a party. Right, meet the Grateful Dead, everybody. It's
right. I go, well, I get it. I'm not trying to be that person. I'm just trying to elevate, what I'm doing. And then Dave said, well, wait a minute, hang on. Why don't instead of a band or whatever you want in that situation, why don't you come work for us? And I said, well, why not? Okay. I mean, what would I do? And I started working in 1976 at the Day on the Green, in the bowels of the Oakland Coliseum.
We've had a previous guest, Dean Del Rey, is great comedian and lover of music, and his first big concert was the AC/DC's Day on the Green with Ted Nugent, and like 1978, I think it was. Yeah, so yeah. First one.
That concert was funny because that's Ted Nugent. So what happened at that show was that Bill loved to put the facades. Bill was way ahead of anything that was, well, nowadays it's 90 by 3,000 foot video wall, right?
Right. But it used to be physical artwork.
It was art, right?
Yeah.
And so he had a jukebox, he had the flying saucers, and we had all the different stuff that worked. Well, that particular day, the Scrim FM production, which was part of Bill Graham Enterprises, something happened and it got ripped and it didn't work. So at the very last minute, the late Peter Barsotti, who used to be the production manager for Bill Graham, came up with an idea of making a roped, like a jungle kind of thing, because Ted Nugent.
Yeah. And he came out on a vine and
right, the whole thing, right? And that was that. And it ended up where Ted Nugent actually crawled down the freaking rope. Now if you talk about OSHA, you talk about
dude. No harness, no cable.
Way this was safety for that. Yeah. But it worked. It was just a huge thing, and that was the Ted Nugent show in AC/DC.
But your first experience working for Bill Graham Enterprises was Day on the Green?
Yeah, I the first time I ever went to a Day on the Green, my soon-to-be wife brought me as a and we had backstage passes before people were backstage. It was cool. It was like, yeah, I like that. My cousin who thought it, who I brought, with my girl and a couple friends. Trying to hit on her. That's how cool it was, right? I'm like, hey, what are you doing? I never said it, and I never said it. She still doesn't know I know. But my girlfriend, now wife's like, no, you hit on me that day. I'm like, oh, gee, nice guy.
He was like, hey, so you get the backstage passes. Is that what I'm to understand?
I'm the cool one, not him. This guy's a dweeb, man. What are you doing?
That's funny.
Anyway, that elevated into after I went to the Chico thing, went to the band, and then Dave said, okay, so I started working. My job was to pick up papers underneath the stage in the backstage area. If you the Oakland Coliseum, they had the stage was backed up on the home, the center field fence.
Yeah.
And that was before we had the wall of the Mount Davis and all that shit. It was a very cool stadium. And they had the big chute that went down and from the back by the railroad tracks. And that was my job. My job was go down there and make it clean.
I was going to say, so pick up just anything like papers, like just shit that got thrown down and dropped and people just not caring about their trash and
make it clean. And then all I remember is I was there for a long time, and Dave Ferrano, came up to me. He goes, Nick, man, it looks like Disneyland down here. It's never been so clean. Never been so clean. So I just worked my ass off. And then, what am I going to do with Bill Graham? I want to have a purpose or whatever. But I remember it wasn't that show, but the next show I came to do the same thing. And one of the trucks were stuck in the, down to the, to the loading dock. Well, the ramp, because they built it, but not, and they couldn't find the driver. And, this is stuff going on.
We got to move. We got to go. We got concerts, event gear, people. We got to move.
A lot of stuff. And you did this, that, and Bill Graham, got the driver, what's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. Move this. And because Bill was a really hands-on guy. It wasn't like he was,
Yeah, he wasn't just a name. He wasn't just a name of a company. He was the guy that everyone had to answer to.
Yeah, the only thing that was different about being on stage is that most people thought Bill Graham was Jerry Pompili. I don't know if there's a person by the name of Jerry Pompili who used to come out every now and then and announce the bands and stuff like that. And everybody thought, but Bill would come out and do that. So it was kind of funny. So it was kind of a, weird thing. Anyway, so, I'm looking around and they can't find the driver. And I say, well, I turn to Dave and I go, well, I can get it going. And Dave goes, what? And it's a semi, right? So he goes, what are you talking about? I go, I could hotwire it. That's no big deal. And luckily, since I was like 13 years old or whatever, my dad owned a dump out in Albany landfill. So I was driving a, D9 tractor. So all my friends.
You were familiar with big machines.
Yeah. D9, I was like, what the fuck this shit? I'm not gonna. But I learned how, I had to figure out at the dump how to fire stuff up, and so there was a truck there '72 Chevy pickup that I like to drive around. My dad used to hide the keys, so I used to pop off the back and learn where I knew which one. I knew the red wire and the yellow wire, and because I saw it to the. So I learned how to wire it and turn it in. Have the run wire and then the start wire. So I said, every vehicle is exactly the same. It's the same
inside that box. Yeah.
Power, ignition, and start. Right. Okay. So I go, I'll do it. And so Bill's like, he looks over and Dave goes, hey, he'll start it. He'll get it out of here. I go, I can't drive it, but I'll start it. So I run back into the road case and I grab some wire and I snip, and I strip it. Because whatever reason, my teeth are perfect for stripping.
You got good stripping wire teeth.
Little 12 gauge wire. Oh, yeah, no problem. Run it together, put it together, strip. Then I went in there and I made sure it was in neutral and then, put it in there and fired it up. And I said, okay, it's good to go. And I start walking away. Bill Graham comes up to me and he goes, hey, where did you learn how to do that?
Who are you?
I go,
yeah.
I looked at him. I go, I grew up in Oakland. I grew up in Oakland, California.
That's how we start cars here.
That's what we do. He just starts laughing. Well, that made a contact between Bill and I now, because he was that guy. I mean, he was the one that liked to see people achieve. He liked to see people do something different that was out of the normal. And
that's so went on from there. What, because I get your impression of him. I think if you don't know anything about Bill Graham except for he was a concert promoter. And look at all this amazing, basically like festivals today are patterned after Day on the Green. You know what I mean? It's kind of a gold standard of like the artwork and adding more than just the band on stage, which would have been enough, especially for those lineups. Those lineups were insane. So to add that extra element of visual, and not like you said, today is a big jumbotron or a screen and it's just another video up there, or it's a picture of that was digitally placed. This is like people on ladders figuring out how to put this giant piece of art in there. And it was, the look of it, I never got to see a Day on the Green show, but the look of it, that is exactly what Lollapalooza was doing. All these other things that came after it are like, we like this. It's extra. It's more. It gives the people, and back then ticket prices were nothing. In comparison, $50 would have been like $50. I'm not going to go see 9 bands for $50. But now it's like one band is $150 to sit in the back. Oh, okay. It's insane. But back then, he was able, and Bill came from a place of theater promotion, correct?
Well, Bill, actually came, he was smuggled out of freaking Germany as a baby. And then he came across.
Wait, I didn't realize that. Was it?
Yeah, his mom and dad and were over there, and his sister Esther, just an unbelievably incredible person. Matter of fact, in the days when we started taking over the food service at the Warfield that over, and she made the chopped liver for the bagels. It was unbelievable, right? She made some great chopped liver, but she had a tattoo. It was like scary shit, people talk about the Holocaust didn't happen. Well, yeah, you're completely fucking off your mind.
Oh well, I would never even entertain someone who had that opinion.
And so Bill got smuggled out of there, and then came over, and then kind of came into England, France type thing, and then came over to New York, and that's where in New York where he came in, became a waiter, and kind of did some of he was in food service. And that led him to kind of navigate over to San Francisco, where he saw a bunch of people, the mime troops, and he kind of started taking them. And so he was never really a theatrical person, except, I just the other night I was on TV watching Bugsy, and he had a pretty good role in Bugsy as Lucky Luciano, and he was like, $1 million, $2 million, I don't even $4 million. I wasn't mean to you. That doesn't mean nothing to you. It means a lot to me. Okay. So he's like a really animated guy.
Wait, I'm sorry. I guess I haven't seen Bugsy in a long time. That's Bill Graham?
That's Bill Graham. Oh, that's Bill Graham. Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh, yeah,
I did not know that.
It's kind of funny because I'm like, well, yeah, he's a good-looking Italian Jew. They're like all good. I mean, he's like there, and I mean, that was Bill's thing. I mean, he was fully animated. I mean, that was nothing about it. I mean, he'd sit there, John, it's not the money, it's the fucking money. I mean, he would scare the shit out of people. Man, he would come across the table and say, "Well, I'm going to grab your fucking throat." So, and that made him who he was. So, yeah, if you think he was theatrical and things of that nature, absolutely. But he was more emotional and very, he was a foodie. He liked food. He liked that, and that's where, the second job that I got after Bill Graham started recognizing me and Dave Ferrano, that I had some sort of ability. I took over all the beverages backstage. So all of a sudden I was the person that was bringing the water and had all the soda and stuff like that. But then I brought in the keg with the tap. Whoa, a tap,
the hero.
With CO2 and elevating it, taking it to the next level. And then that led into taking over the entire backstage of the Day on the Green with all the dressing rooms and then theatrical parts of it when we did the Monsters of Rock, where we brought in, built a bridge and had a pond, a pool with alligators and just stuff. That was the whole thing. It was theatrical for the bands, and it was much more entertaining for the backstage environment for the bands and their guests. And it also made Bill feel good. But it was also kind of a demise for Bill too, because I remember riding with him I'm bouncing all over the place, but I remember
That's all right.
Oakland Auditorium, which was now the Henry J. Kaiser Center.
Right.
And I thought it would be the next Winterland for Bill. Winterland was pretty much a death trap. I mean, that place, it would have made.
Meaning just like the building itself, the structure, how it was done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 6,000 people above a parking lot with cars with creosote wood and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah. I mean, that was started out as a carousel ballroom, right? That was a carousel
ballroom was above the Toyota dealership on Van Ness.
Oh, okay. So it was a different.
Yeah, carousel ballroom was upstairs. Matter of fact, we tried to recreate the carousel ballroom and bring it back Fillmore West, kind of like the carousel ballroom kind of emerged from that, but they couldn't. It was a cool room and it was still there. I mean, when I was working still with Bill, 86, 87, we went upstairs to the old carousel ballroom. It was above a car dealership, and great little room and unbelievable. It was a bunch of history.
Yeah.
But you couldn't get the egress out of it. Like Winterland. I mean, if you're up on top on the upper level, and you're on the east side, there'd be the north side, south side. So the north side, there were no exits.
Oh, so when you say death trap, you mean literal death trap?
No,
yeah.
No exits. Jesus. Okay, so and then the only exit you could go is back toward the front, which were literally 32-foot stairwell that wrapped around on both sides. I mean, 32-inch.
Yeah.
Maybe 36 that would wrap around. I mean, you have to jump off the railing. On the other side, on the south side, they had doors that you could get out, and then it was fire escapes going down. But under Winterland it was all cars. And so if by chance a car caught on fire down there, it would have been
done.
So anyway, that's why that was the demise of Winterland. It was an unbelievable place. And I think Wolfgang's Vault still has a lot of the video because Bill, that's one thing Bill did too. Another kind of a bummer thing. Steve Payne was a buddy of mine that was working for us. He worked under my division at Bill Graham, and he broke away to start doing all the filming, and he started taking all the films that were there before. And Bill always had it He always filmed it, because back when bands didn't care that they were getting captured. Now it's like, but Bill's, Steve, I remember he come down to Bill at the steps of the auditorium in Oakland and goes, Bill, I got this idea. Why don't we take these videos and put them on TV? And Bill's like, what, TV? What, TV? Nobody's going to watch them on TV. They got to come to a show. Okay, well, MTV later, right? So, in one sense, Bill's, desire for perfection when it came to the actual production in the room kind of limited his future.
Well, yeah, and that's also like, he was successful at what he was doing, and it was like when people told me about what Instagram was, I was like, nobody wants to see pictures of people's food. Like, what? And that's not going to catch on. Like, Twitter is just people talking about what they're doing with their day. Like, who gives a shit? And I never thought anything. And then all of a sudden now here I am like, oh, I better put out another tweet, and I better put out a picture on Instagram, and I better, it now drives the comedy industry. It's like, it's a crazy, but I can see where he'd be like, because especially the music that he was able to witness, of course he thinks it's better live. It is better live. There's absolutely, but also you have to take into account that people in the Midwest or the South can't get to Southern California, can't get to Northern California, can't get to these places to see live shows. If you would have put that on TV, it would have piqued some interest and would have got eyes on those bands, I'm sure. I mean, not that any of them suffered from that, but I'm sure that it would have done well on TV. I think that would have been the beginning of MTV right there, but it just came a little bit later.
I do. I think that, and it was also pre-sponsorship. I remember walking at the Day on the Greens, and when I started becoming a little bit more relevant in the company and having a bigger role. I was saying, well, why aren't you? Matter of fact, to this day, my good friend Dave Smith, who was the checkbook for Miller Brewing Company. And back then I didn't really know him. It's kind of funny. We tell stories now, but I was like, well, why don't you just get we're going to, the stadium here, the Coliseum is selling Miller beer. Okay.
Yeah.
And why not get Miller to put up a sign for, $10,000? I go, how much does it cost for the scrim? $10,000. Well,
there you go. Scrim's paid for. We're good.
And at the time, Bill was like, no, we're not going to be commercial. We're not going to be that commercial. We're going to do this. We're going to do this our way. And I go, okay, well, whatever. And soon enough, there were 14 logos all over the stuff.
It's the writing on the wall. I mean, it's like Burt Reynolds in Boogie Nights. It's like, we're going to make porno on film, only film. And then eventually it's like, dude, you got to go to VHS, bro. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. One way or another, they want to bring it home, put it in their private little collection in their bedroom.
Right.
Right. But, those are things that in the passion of the moment. And so when you talk about Bill being theatrical and Bill being emotional and things of that nature, he was. And that's why he ended up allowing me to start a food company, where he was asking me if I wanted to become the production manager. I was basically, Peter Barsotti was going to elevate to a senior department. I was going to become the person that takes care of all the shows. And
that sounds like a lot of responsibility. I'm not.
Well, it isn't. It isn't. I mean, it was a really shitty thing to say as a 26-year-old, 27-year-old kid, to be looking down the throat of the production manager of Bill Graham Presents and say, I don't really want to be a babysitter. Now, okay. I probably would rethink my words as a little more old, but in reality, that's all you are. And as I said at that moment, I said, listen, if the Rolling Stones are coming to Candlestick Park, okay, the Rolling Stones are going to play regardless if Nick Nicora is bringing the show or not. I mean, maybe there's some element. So all I'm doing is basically putting together the union call, making sure that, and then basically, coming up with ways to cheat. But that's kind of what it was, That's kind of what I like about the whole thing, listen. I was no angel back in those days, but the one thing that I made a point is that I never did a drug when I was working, and I never was, on some sort of alternative, drinking and stuff of that nature. And a lot of the people took the rock and roll scene as a place to party. And I'm looking at it as something like, okay, wait, this is something we're gonna go. We're gonna build a life on this.
It's gonna advance. There's more than just this concert. There's a world of concerts we can bring in and survive.
I'm not behind an 8 ball of cocaine and not wake up the next morning and not get to my job or forget the fact that, and then create union bills that are going into the settlement at the end of the show so we can take 20 extra grand off the bottom line. I mean, it got pretty sticky. In my mind, it was very just
shady.
And I always grew up as an Italian with food and cooking and a grandfather and blah, 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 I'm not holistic about it, but I do know that I felt more comfortable telling Bill, I can make more money for you than creating this thing that already happens and getting driven down into this world of drugs and whatever, as opposed to I can take your breakfast, lunch, dinners that we do backstage. I could do the front of house. We can start selling bagels and cream cheese and fresh squeezed orange juice to the Grateful Dead crowds, and we can start doing different things and bean sprout burritos and things like that would sell. Back in the day when the Grateful Dead were playing at Winterland and or at the Oakland Auditorium, the Coliseum, volume service and the food concessions companies were selling hot dogs. Okay, well, I can tell you that the Grateful Dead crowd doesn't want to eat a freaking hot dog.
Not looking for hot dogs.
No, so how about a nice bean burrito with sprouts and a
couple grilled cheeses here and there,
a little fresh squeezed orange juice with the machine squeezing it, and a piece of carrot cake and a bagel and cream cheese, and things of that nature. That was something that was different, but it was more. Anyway, so it worked. And Bill let us do a couple shows, and then he finally said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I'd rather start a company, and for you, and then instead of doing what's already been done." So he agreed. Well, that alienated me pretty good about everybody and everybody else. The Bob Bart story, the Peter.
Oh, you too good for us? You gonna go start your own thing?
Good. Food, fucking, and so I remember sitting in the room with Bill, and we were trying to figure out what we were going to call it. He was going to put 80 grand in and fund it. And I said, okay. So he goes, well, Nick, what are we going to do? What are we going to call it? What are we going to call it? And I look up on his wall, and I see a poster, and he has a basketball jersey on, and it's called the Fillmore Fingers. And that was his thing. We're the Fillmore Fingers. Fuck
gotcha.
You.
Gotcha.
Come play with us, but we're gonna beat you, right? Because we played volleyball with like Huey Lewis. We played with Tom Petty and all the time. Every time they came to town, it was always something competitive. So I said, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we call it Fillmore Fingers? Because we'll fill more fingers with food,
dude.
And it was done. And we created a logo and at the lovely Gold Mirror in San Francisco with a buddy of mine, and that's where it all started.
All right, so you've kind of you're a part of the Bill Graham scene now. Like he knows you. You're starting this company. You're making him money. You're making yourself money. What was the first, if you can remember? And first of all, I want to say this. Good for you for looking around and seeing and having the wherewithal at that age when I would not have to see that if I do this job, I'm literally going to be a cokehead for the rest of my life, which will not be that much longer. If I do this job, I'm going to definitely go down the wrong path. Like I would have taken that like, it's the 70s. We're at a Grateful Dead show. We're getting paid. Let's party. You know what I mean? I would have been ousted out of that scene quickly because of my inability to, at that age, to understand that we were working and not partying, So solid on your part. But when was your first Grateful Dead show, and was it something you were working, or did you just attend a show on your own?
Well, the very first Grateful Dead show that I actually was at the Cow Palace with the Wall of Sound. And I went there with my soon-to-be wife, and it was way before any of this. This is like in the early 70s, maybe 72. So
you were aware of the band, and you were...
Oh, yeah. I was aware of the Grateful Dead. And,
yeah.
And they're... I looked at the Grateful Dead a little different than most. A lot of them were, they always call them rock and roll. I'm like, that's not rock and roll. This is jazz, country, blues. Like blues. I mean,
it's a weird combo of just about everything.
This is 5 guys on stage that are trying to put something together that they might not have heard 2 minutes ago.
Yeah,
they're jamming. They have a structure, and that jam kind of went, in weird ways because. I've never known a band that did so many drugs as that band did. Holy shit.
But not just like drugs that would inhale. Like if you're like, I gotta be on for this. I'm gonna take cocaine. I'll move quicker. I'll do this. These guys were like, let's take psychedelics and then play our instruments. And it's like, dude, when you're on psychedelics, like things aren't solid. Do you know what I mean? So when you're like playing a guitar, like what? Like the idea, like when Jerry and Carlos Santana's story about Woodstock, when he's like, Jerry was like, when are you going on? And I thought I was going on at midnight. So he's like, hey, take this acid. So I took the acid, and 30 minutes later, some guy's like, hey man, you gotta get on stage. And he's like, what? And he had to go out, and like, that's the Carlos Santana performance that people will look at and go, that's Carlos Santana. Meaning, like, it's an iconic performance before we even knew about the LSD. And then you add the fact that this dude is on stage ripping it up out of his mind. Like, that's a very impressive feat. And when I hear about how much the Grateful Dead did that and how they used it to sort of kind of become one, you know what I mean? Because they're really, there's Phil Lesh has said it, but the Grateful Dead is one hand, 5 fingers. It's like, they're all doing a little bit something different, but they're all connected at the base, So it's when we did, I think it was it might have been 8 or 12 days at Winterland. I mean, and then the same thing back to back over at the Warfield when they would put the long runs together. It was interesting because it was like almost one concert pound into one because they would stretch it out. I think that was one they finally did Dark Star and something like and then, but there was definitely an element the drug use was definitely an element of how they performed. Yeah,
there was no doubt about it. I mean, the Rolling Stones can pound it out and do what they do. Keith Richards could be on heroin and whatever, and you can get the geez, my brain. My best guitar player in the world, Eric. He could be on heroin and be ripping it up. But the rest of the band, they were following along, or they may not have been in that world, and they're not.
Yes, yeah.
Tom Petty and heroin, and I mean, but it's a singular thing. When you start talking about the Grateful Dead, they literally took the same drug and they literally were on the same high. I think they literally they said, okay, we're going to take 2 tonight. Okay. All right. 2. Okay. Take 1 at 7. And then we're going to take 1 at 10.
Break.
And then by 1 o'clock, we're going to be ripping it. Right. And so it became part of it was a tool of their instrument.
Yeah, that they used, I think, in a positive way. You know what I mean? Because there is like you said, if like the lead singer or the lead guitarist is on a drug, the rest of the band is like the Doors. The Doors weren't let's get as loaded as Jim Morrison. They were like, right. we need to play so that when he passes out, the audience doesn't have throw a fit. Because he was. I mean, just from everything I've read. It was hit or miss, it's like he's on, it's a great show. He's not on, it's a terrible
But that show. Happened a lot with the Grateful Dead. I mean,
yes, but they full on admit it that they're like, sometimes it didn't take off. Yeah.
I mean, like I have buddies that have all the the cassette tapes. They'd be back there with their
Bootlegs.
microphone. They got their cassette. And it was like you'd listen to some of this stuff and you'd go, God dang, it was horrible.
But there was something about them being willing to
Allow it.
have that, and like part of it, like to me, there's a little bit of this laziness that helped make the Grateful Dead who they are. Like when I'm sure Bill Graham was like, dude, we can't have tapers because tapers are going to tape the performance and then they're not going to buy the records.
He didn't care because while they were worried about the tapers, he was throwing in 1,000 extra people that the Dead didn't know about.
There you go. Because the Grateful Dead, like their management was like, stop the taping. The taping has to stop. People aren't going to buy the albums. And the Grateful Dead, like Bob Weir's like, I just didn't want to be a cop. I didn't want to tell people what to do. So we just didn't do anything about the taping. And literally by doing nothing about the taping, those bootlegs, that's what made them who they are. Yeah. By not being authoritative and being like, hey man, this is our music. We're gonna try to do different songs every night. They're never gonna be played the same way, and it's always gonna be kind of, And again, I say I don't want to say lazy in a bad, but like there are some musicians who are structured, and it has to be these are the chords, these are the notes, this is what we're doing, this is it, and it's like that every time. You know what I mean? Like Rush doesn't like. Neil Peart didn't improvise in the middle of Tom Sawyer. It was all very,
same thing all the time.
Yeah, and the Grateful Dead nothing was ever the same. I mean, Bill Kreutzmann is a drummer, and he could barely keep time, and they would just be all over the place, and it was crazy. It was wild.
Well, and their crowd, unlike going to see, like you say, Rush or even Phil Collins and Genesis, right? They were the Genesis was the first of. Let's have these electronic lights that that move around by way of the next to the video board. It's like the soundboard. Now they got this video computer that can create this images and lights and stuff. So which is fun, kind of captivates the audience a little bit. But you still get a crowd that comes and goes. They go to the Greek Theater and they're gonna be home that night in Oakland or San Francisco, wherever, and then they're going to wait till the next time that Phil Collins or Genesis comes around, and they might go and might not, depending on how they like. Grateful Dead had that just impact the 3,000 people that just kind of flowed with them. And I always say that they're the kids that kid from Philadelphia that mom and dad have too much money and they just don't want to take care of the kid. They give them an American Express card and some cash as they leave, and they just travel with the van. So every night they were experiencing the same thing. And so
I mean, look, I saw my first Dead show in '92 at Soldier Field, and it was immediately life-changing. Like from the they opened with Bertha, and from the first notes, like up until that point, I'd seen a lot of concerts, but they'd all been mostly metal and rock and roll, louder and just more like maybe some punk bands too. I heard every note that Jerry played. Like it was the cleanest sounding concert I'd ever heard. I was like, what was that? And that was it. I mean, from that I only saw 24 shows, but from 92 to 95, I saw those 24 shows. And after high school in 93, I went out on the road and I saw 10 shows. I mean, I whatever I could get my hands on and my eyes and ears on is what I wanted. That band changed how I saw music, so it was very influential to me. And also that getting on the road really opened me up to traveling more. Like before the internet, before GPS, it was like all road atlases and you're like, how the fuck do I get to Buffalo? And you're right. You have to like trace the route and then you have to follow it and be like, I think I'm on the right. So it just really opened me up and took that kind of fear away of being on the road. And it was more like, hey, I got a place I'm going. And if we get there, we're going to see the show and then we'll figure out how to get to It's just more of a relaxed attitude towards everything I do, really. But, the Wall of Sound, man, that's, first of all, Cow Palace, phenomenal early show there that you hit. What were some of the other bands that came through places that the Dead played? I mean, you're in working for Bill Graham in the mid-late 70s, early 80s. Who else did you see in there that you were like, these guys? Did you see anybody like before they were big and then be like, these guys are going to be huge?
Well, Foreigner was one of the first bands I ever and I was underneath the stage picking up papers, and all of a sudden I heard, "You're as cold as ice," and it's opening band that's they're gonna hear this band's from Europe, I don't know, they might be freaking unbelievable, right? And I was like, holy shit, these guys are good.
That's awesome.
Journey.
Bill Graham really helped Journey out, didn't he? Because they were from the Bay Area. Yeah.
He should have been producing them. He picked Eddie Money and Joe Satriani and Santana only because he was Bill Graham management was Santana, just because Bill at the Carousel Ballroom is where Carlos Santana was trying to break into a show, and he just bumped into Bill Graham. Bill Graham sees it coming through a window, and they get this altercation, and one thing leads to another, and then Bill says, they have a conversation, and then that became Carlos Santana and Bill Graham.
Wow, dude, I didn't know that. That's insane.
It's funny. Bill loved that story.
Oh my God.
But I would say for me, after I started the food company with Fillmore Fingers, our primary thing was to do some small amount of front of house food and beverage, the Greek Theater, the Oakland Auditorium, shows that we produced: Laguna Seca, Grateful Dead, Journey, or no, it was Grateful Dead, Huey Lewis. We went up and we did Mountain Airs. We took over the Mountain Air shows. The poor Bill Barr, Bill. The one thing the Bill organization did have a habit of doing is going in and finding things they wanted and loaning money to a point where it was enough that there was no way they could ever get it back, and they would take
own it now, yeah.
Right. And so when we owned the venue, then we took on the food. We did the beer. We did everything, and it was definitely another element of well as the ancillary income that now is so important to any show. I mean, I do a lot of fairgrounds and concerts and things of that nature right now, and predominantly fairs because after I left the Bill Graham organization, which is another story, went into the family entertainment, which was fairgrounds and things, and really got an appreciation for ag education, 4-H kids, FFA, Future Farmers of America, and really becoming part of a little bit more of a historical educational experience, and then bringing food to that, but using the same thing that Bill wanted to do all the time is, we would always create these environments. So when we say who I knew at that point doing that, I started doing backstage catering for Bill, and basically developing a business for all. So there isn't a band that came through the Bay Area and or other areas, a surrounding area, from 1978 to the late '88 that I didn't feed. So I knew the bands intimately, and then we would build these environments backstage. So like the Who, we built the Who pub behind the stage because the Who would come in for 3 nights. And so, or 2 nights, whatever that would be. And then we would build this environment for the backstage environment. And we would create the emotional thing for people backstage. That in itself started the whole thing about Bill saying, we were sitting there at the Who pub, and he's like going, "Nick, what can we do with this? I mean, this. I go, well, it's great, but we can do this for the public out front. We can do better food for the public out front." And so he agreed with that, and that kind of expanded that opportunity. But mainly it was a good and a bad for me, because by feeding all the bands and by being in the dressing rooms, by being intimately part of what's going on in my pocket here, phone's going. You also learned what jerks they were. I mean,
yeah.
There are bands that were, fun. Van Halen, David Lee Roth, and Eddie Van Halen, and being backstage and creating an 4x8 foot drum set cake for I always forget
Alex
Van Halen's, and it's like and then we build this cake, and then they throw it into the freaking thing, you know. But before that, I'm going up into the dressing room with some crudité, you know, veggies and cheese platters, because it's got to be in the dressing room. And I go in there, and there's Alex Van Halen, you know, on a couch that I brought up, you know, earlier, and he's got 3 girls, one down below, one up above, and one over here. You know, it's like, I mean, holy Jesus Christ!
I got your cheese plate, Alex.
I got your cheese plate. Will you like your crudité now or tomorrow?
Yeah, just put it down on another naked chick.
Right. I mean, like, can you spare one?
So I'm also by myself here, so.
But they were like true, really good guys. You know?
I can't tell you how great it is to hear that. Van Halen and the Grateful Dead are the 2 most influential bands in my life. They changed the way I saw music and the way I played guitar and the way I did everything, you know. And to hear that Van Halen was fun, that's their band. That band is fun. You know what I mean? Like when you hear their music, it's fun.
Yeah,
I love that.
And they did have a good time. I mean, it was somewhat demoralizing when you see all the girls lined up after the show, and they're going down, looking down the blouse, and okay, yeah, you can go, and then one of them's gonna have sex with David Lee Roth in a helicopter over San Francisco. Okay, one of them will. Now the other one's gonna be in the back of a bus with a rigger. You know,
yeah, right.
Getting ready to go to the next show, and you know how you doing. But so it kind of just like Steve Perry. I had a good friend of mine, my dad's friend, that was on the board at the Cow Palace, and I said, "Can I get my daughter backstage?" And I go, Lenny, I no problem, okay, but why? Okay,
yeah, you don't want her back there.
You really don't want her there. I'll take care of her and blah blah blah. And so she's there, and then all of a sudden I see, at the end of the show, it's all over, and Steve Perry's walking. He doesn't know me, but he knows that I'm.
He knows you're there. Yeah.
Right. And so I walk her over, and I said, "Hey, Steve, could you sign her backstage pass?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, no problem. Really nice." And he signs it. And okay, we'll walk away, and we look at it, and it says Jack Burns, or he didn't even sign it, Steve Perry. I'm like, why did he do that? And so sometimes you just get that, that weird kind of jerk attitude, like,
yeah.
What's his name? The guitar, the piano man, Billy Joel. So we had our security supervisor, who ran all the Blue Coats, all the security for the shows. Okay. And so he was an artist, and he, kind of like, when you work security and stuff like that, it's a secondary job, obviously.
Yeah.
And all the Blue Coats kind of worked for free. They were like, "Oh, we'll get to go see the show," and then, but the security manager had to, really take care of all the calls, make sure the police department was outside, the fire department and everything, all the other detail oriented stuff, not just the floor. And he sculpted this bust of Billy Joel. And so I'm doing the dressing rooms. And so he brought it over in a box, and it was all crazy. He was so proud of it. And so we put it in there, and it looked like Billy Joel. I mean, it was like cool. I mean, it was like, 18 inches by, it was big too. And they just defaced it. They cigarettes in the eyes. They dumped egg on top of the head. And it's like, what? Can you just take it?
Dude, yeah, there's this thing, like when I was growing up, you'd hear all these stories, like people, bands throwing TVs out the window and Led Zeppelin trashing the Hyatt, and you're like, and then you see the Who smash their instruments, and you're like, oh yeah, I guess that's rock and roll. But then as I got older, I'm like, hey, man, those guitars cost money. And if you don't want them, maybe donate them to a school. Maybe give them to some kids. And hey, stop shitting on the carpet in the hotel. What are you doing? Like, you start to see that as like, I wouldn't behave like that if I was. Well,
you brought up Led Zeppelin, that the very last show ever was that
Day on the Green.
Day on the Green, right? And so I'm there, and
I'm fuck. You saw the last Led Zeppelin show.
Oh, I was right in the middle of it, because what ended up happening was the show started getting a little weird, and then all of a sudden I'm kind of doing my backstage thing now. I'm starting to take over breakfast, and I'm kind of really trying. And all of a sudden, this person runs out from under the tunnel, from the crowd under the tunnel, like he's running backstage. Well, I tackle the son of a bitch. I go, oh, I'm gonna get it. Well, he ended up being the manager of fucking Led Zeppelin, right? And I'm like, fuck. So I'm surrounded by all these goons. Bill Graham, what? He came, he was running.
I tackled him. I thought he was a fan.
Well, at the same time that was happening, we would build these. I'd go to San Francisco, and that was another one of my jobs I got, was to go get the Redwood. Every band had a Redwood sign, and I had the guy down at Fisherman's Wharf
engrave it, yeah.
And say, Rolling Stones, or so in this one it was Robert Plant, it was the drummer
John Bonham.
Bonham. So John Bonham had one on his dressing room, because every one of them had their own dressing rooms. It wasn't just because it was just Led Zeppelin. It was I don't think there was an opening act. It was just Led Zeppelin. Had to be an opening act, but whatever. John Bonham's son, who now is
Jason Bonham,
Jason Bonham, playing in the band if they ever come back, walked up and said he wanted the sign. And so Jim McZorkis, who, by the way, I just found out he just passed away, it was really sad. Jim McZorkis, big guy, and he said, well, you can have it tomorrow, because it's not tonight. Well, he throws a fit. Jason Bonham throws a fit, says, fuck you, I want the goddamn sign, and I'll get my dad and we'll get the sign. I want it now. And they're going, well, no. Well, anyway, John Bonham and the goons come and beat the fuck.
I heard about this story. That's why they beat him up, because he wouldn't give the sign.
Beat the fucking shit out of him. Broke his jaw, the whole thing. Then Bob Barsotti goes running in there. Well, now things are out of control. Now I just tackled the frickin' manager. This is going on backstage, and all of a sudden now it is face-to-face frickin' Zeppelin, Bill Graham, frickin' and guns appear. I mean, guns come out of fucking pockets from the road. It's scary shit. And then Bill Graham has to sign off on, not pressing charges, because
didn't he have to go to their hotel room to sign the thing that said otherwise they weren't going to play?
I know that I don't know if he went to the hotel room, but I know that he met them and their attorney and Bill's attorney, and that because they were not going to go on the next day. Okay, they flat out would not go.
Because he could have, John Bonham could have easily been sued, and he would have lost.
Oh, he'd gone to jail. This is physical assault.
Yeah,
and a bunch of witnesses, right? So anyway, long story short, which is already long, but they ended up going on stage after getting the waiver, and then immediately got arrested after the show, though, and then that was literally the last time they ever were back in the United States.
Because John Bonham died
then he died right not long after that.
Yeah, within 6 months after that, I believe. Which,
but so that kind of gave me that, when I got married, it wasn't like I didn't enjoy the scene. I did. I mean, it was fun. But, I remember we had to ride up, like we had to go to the 3-day thing, Catholic, you got to go to the.
Oh, when you're getting married? Yeah.
Yeah, right. So you got to go through the little, to make sure that you're, so they're going to talk to you about why you're getting married, the priest, stuff like that. Okay. So we had to write in a journal and stuff like that. And I remember writing in there, I'm waiting outside of the Oakland Auditorium, ready to go into a sold out show. As I walk in to the sold out show, I see the audience worshiping heroes that are actually zeros. And I just always remember being in front of the, in the pit and just watching this adulation of who's on stage. And knowing in the back of my head that there's only very, very, very few of those stars really deserve that adulation.
That are worth even being friends with. Yeah.
Exactly, because that person that you're idolizing will take you and have sex with you and drop you off on the next street corner and not give a fuck.
Never give a shit about you at all.
You become a stapled Polaroid in the road case.
Yeah, or the butt of a joke or whatever.
And that kind of when the whole thing with Bill Graham, when the whole thing kind of crashed down for me, and it really had to do with the hierarchy at Bill Graham. Wanting some stuff that was going on with Ogden Foods and Ogden Presents and things of that nature. But when I did break away and I did get into the fair industry, when you're talking about 1.4 million people coming to the Orange County Fair, or 1.5 million people coming to the LA Fair, plus all the NHRA drags and all the different stuff that happened at a fairgrounds, the monster trucks, the autoramas with the hot rods and the Good Guys car shows and stuff like that. You start realizing that, the Good Guy car shows brings all this camaraderie, all these people that come because of somebody building their car or somebody showing off what they've produced or purchased. And then you got the fair, and you got the 4-H kid that's going to raise this cow, and she's 3'5", 13 years old, but she's bringing this steer on stage for her college education for her, and she's going to get $18,000 because she's so cute that everybody's going to bid and go together. It's not everybody that sits there and says, well, I'm just going to spend $18,000 for her. No, I'll put 2, you put 5, I'll put 6, I'll put 1. And then all of a sudden, you got this group of people that are giving this child that worked for 8 months to raise this animal. It's just so much more holistically experienced.
I like that though. You just felt better about the scene.
It's warm.
Yeah. You
feel comfortable about bringing your own
family
into it.
Yeah.
And it's a big deal. And so I'm blessed to have been able to have the opportunity to dump ping pong balls and naked girls out of a helicopter at the Day on the Green with the Rolling Stones. At the same time, I get to be I'm 63 now, and I believe I'm just starting a new career with whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
And every year's a new career, just because even though it's the same thing I've been doing for the last 60 years.
You spice it up.
It's just something different. Technology is now it's technology. What used to be back in the day when, you're just not going to buy anything anymore without your phone. There's no reason to stand in line. There's no reason to go to a counter and do a commerce with somebody. You just buy it and then go up your QR code. Beep, okay, get your beer.
Yeah.
You can buy 5 beers on your QR, have 5 QR codes and just walk up and go beep, 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 and I'll buy one for you. Yeah, beep. Okay. It's like done.
Yeah.
And so that's the new world, I think. It's just blessed to be able to do that and have the experience of being with Bill Graham. Being up at Bill Graham's house, I was, in his airplane, lots of times with Steve Kahn, who actually flew into the power pole with Bill in a helicopter. I have really, Melissa, who was in the helicopter with Bill. I knew her. We went skiing in up in Tahoe and Mammoth together with Steve flying the plane. It's just, you'll never forget those experiences and never forget the moments, but glad to live through it. That's for sure.
Yeah, man. Obviously, if anyone doesn't know, Bill Graham was killed in a helicopter crash leaving Oakland Alameda Coliseum.
No, it was the Concord Pavilion. And it's kind of funny because it's like years later, I wanted to get the bottom painted on I have those 24-foot boat that I use in the bay, and it was building up barnacles. Because I leave it there, and so my buddy said, "Well, go get my buddy Rick Frampton up there in Rio Vista. He'll paint your bottom of your boat. He's great. It'll be easy, and he'll give you a deal because I sent you." So I get up there, and then we start talking about Bill Graham, and then before long, he had a limo company that was doing the concerts, and he was doing Huey. He had Huey Lewis as a client, but his driver, didn't make it that night. I had left long time. I had been gone for Bill Graham for a few years, but the same people. And so Rick was like driving the limo when he was standing there when Steve Kahn, Bill Graham, and Huey Lewis were talking about, Bill, just use my limo. All the airports are shut down. Don't worry about it. And Steve Kahn goes, nah, I'm fine. And then Bill's like, well, and then Rick's just sitting there going, because he was thinking he was going to take them in the car, drive them back to, Masada in Corte Madera. And then they come back, get the helicopter the next day, because they even said, it's confidence, you can leave it here, no big deal. It's like, no big deal. No. So Steve said, no, I can make it. And he decided that he was going to, just take Highway 37. So it was a Concord Pavilion, popped over the hill, and he came over Vallejo, and he said, I'll just take Highway 37 and just, all the way, stay under the clouds, and I'm good. And he was just 1 foot too low. The little skid, the little thing hooked the wire.
God damn.
Yeah, it was ugly thing.
That is not good. But
it was the way Bill wanted to go.
Really?
Yeah, he always felt that he was going to go big, so he didn't want to be some squirrely little, guy dying of cancer, in bed, spitting blood, having somebody change his, spit cup. No, so in a weird way, he did. I know at the end he felt somewhat betrayed by the industry. He got bitter, about the industry because of the agents.
Yeah, it kind of moved in a different direction, and it wasn't so much, hey, I got this idea, I'm going to go talk to Jerry and the guys, and we're going to figure it out. It's like you got to deal with a manager and an agent and a publicist and a booker, and it just becomes more than he was used to dealing with or felt he needed to deal with. Probably
he felt he was bigger than that. And
he's like, don't talk to me. I'm Bill fucking Graham.
Right. and that he said that to me. He like sat on Mick Jagger's steps, and for him to come home and go, Nick, what are you doing? I'm going to do your tour. That's what I'm the one that's done this. I brought you here. I got you here. And Mick's like, you got to talk to my agent.
I don't make those decisions. I'm Mick Jagger.
Because guess what? They're making a deal with MCA, and that they made a deal with Macy's, and now you're offering me $70 million for the tour, and they're offering me $350 million because they're going to sell our merchandise at all the Macy's and Federated in the world. So hey, Bill, I don't know. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
So he just never stepped it to the next level. And that was probably his emotional side. He had a hard time letting, going to that.
He was he was an emotional guy. He was passionate.
Oh, that was no doubt about it. I mean, the guy cared so much about what what the public felt coming in. And he wasn't a guy that was scared to. He would walk around the Grateful Dead crowd. He was there. People knew who he was. They would leave him alone. People would come up and say, "Hey, Bill." But if somebody was doing something stupid, Bill be in his face. If somebody was doing something smart, he'd walk up and go, "Hey," he'd be their friend.
Yeah.
It was a, it was. I'm happy tonight. I kind of remember talking to him in the back of the old office at 11th and Howard before it got burnt down. With kind of like he was my uncle, well, you're my uncle. Nick Klanos, the president of the company, said, "You'll never understand how to read a balance sheet." Bill Graham goes, he would, after Nick said that to me, because Nick wasn't the nicest guy in the world, and Bill took me into his office and he goes, Nick, remember one thing. Nick does what he does, but you can buy what Nick does. Emotion and what you do and why you do and ideas. That's what makes life. That's what makes.
Dude.
But what they do, when he tells you can't read a balance sheet, I can't read a fucking balance sheet. Do I want to read a balance sheet? I don't want to read a balance sheet. They can read a balance sheet. I just make the money. That's a good,
but see, that to me, like, that's what I want to see more of. I want people that like what they do, to be excited to work, to be passionate, even if, like, I just feel like as a whole, as a society, people are just less happy with their jobs. So they put out less effort so that, they can go make their money to go buy the things they want, which are, you're purchasing these things you want, which are made by people who are miserable at their jobs, who put in less effort. It's just a weird thing that keeps feeding itself. And I just wish that more people were a little bit more passionate, a little bit more excited about what they do. You know what I mean?
Well, it's without a doubt. And that's why I firmly believe that in the world that we live in now, small business, entrepreneurial opportunity is so much more important than, okay, so I'm going to go to 4 years at UCLA and come out a bachelor's of arts degree. Okay, what am I doing with that? Okay, you want to go be a teacher? Go be a teacher. You want to go be an engineer? Go be an engineer. You want to really do something in that. But other than that, get yourself out on the street and buy yourself a little pizza parlor. Go find a friend that's got, more money than God. They're all out there. It's not like there isn't, there are people that have lots of money, and you just got to have enough guts to walk up to them and say, I need to borrow 150 grand. I'm going to put you in. And by the way, you'll have free pizza for the rest of your life. And let's come on, be part of this. Let's call it, your name's Joe. My name's Nick. Let's get it Joe Nick's Pizza. And we're going to call it, and take the risk.
Yeah.
I think we don't teach our kids that anymore.
No, it's all about safety. It's all about safety. You got to have a plan B. You got to have something to fall back on. Yeah, you can pursue a career in music, but also get your degree in business. So it's that kind of thing.
Work for Google, so they can put me in a little cubby hole, and I can be the one that's saying, "Oh yeah, that I don't believe in that statement, so I'm gonna cut that one out." Whatever. You're just a minion, and at which point does being a minion life? I just think that they're trying to make us all minions. But that's what Bill didn't do. Now he did the downside of that though was Bill liked to compete people. He loved the competition, so he loved seeing his managers competing against the other managers. So there was the Bill Graham Management Company, the FM Productions, there was Winterland Productions, there was the BGP, there was the Fillmore Fingers, and there wasn't like this harmonious little group. It was like they were always battling, and Bill liked to see the battle. Who's going to win? He loved to see whether Peter Barsotti or Nick Nicora was going to come out on top.
Yeah. That's funny, man.
And that's kind of, that's entrepreneurial, but it's also a little bit mean-spirited.
It is. I've seen that too. I've seen that in television production, executive producers who kind of make it a competition. And I'm like, dude, aren't we all making the same show? Aren't we all here for the same reason? Like, what am I competing against? I just want everyone to do a good job, and then we put out a good product. How does that sound?
And that's in the end, when that happens, I mean, it's what's interesting about it is that you see it so often in so many different. I mean, in sports, you got the team that's stacked with the $50 billion payroll, but then you get this little tiny squirt team over here that just Sandlot baseball, and they just get along and they just inspire each other. And that's the way it is. I mean, I have employees now that have literally worked for me for 32 years. And that's not because I'm like, pay them this or do that or whatever. It's because we inspire ourselves as a team, as an effort to be one as a group. And you make a mistake, you do this, and it's okay. Take a risk. Go ahead, take a shot. Don't make too many wrong moves, but at least you care,
that's it. You care. You want to care about what you're doing.
And you got to respect. We've lost respect. A lot of the things that are happening in our inner cities and stuff like that, there's absolutely no respect for any individuals that walks down the street because they don't feel respected, and they don't feel respected, so they're going to shoot you, as opposed to not just being a human being, just being somebody that wants to make I want to make you happier,
Right. But like you said, it's a systematic thing where those people don't feel respected because they're not. The government doesn't respect them. The cops don't respect them. There's no respect in that community for those people. So you're right. When they see other people, they're like, why would I? There's nothing to respect here. You're just another person. Like, if I'm not respected, why the fuck should you get any respect?
I'm not going to give you any respect because you're not respecting me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And guess what? Yeah, I did probably kill somebody last week, and I probably did, run fentanyl down the street, and 5 kids got might have overdosed because of it. But They don't understand that. They just never thought, they've never learned that. I remember taking kids from Richmond, and then from the when we do the food and beverage, like at NASCAR at Sears Point Raceway, and now Sonoma Raceway, whatever. And I would get the Job Corps, who a buddy of mine was the chef over there and kind of ran it. And so I would take those kids and I would bring them up, and we would do cooking off the grill. So you come up and get your burger, and you get your bun at the window, and then you go up and get your meat off the grill. It was just better. It was, the whole thing was a fun experience. But these, the kids, after 3 or 4 times, all of a sudden I started paying them $60, $80, and all of a sudden the $80 became more important than the job. And then all of a sudden they went back, and then they started robbing each other for the $80. That's one side of it. Then the other side, you go over to the Berkeley Unified School District, where we had kids that were from, coming out of Richmond and stuff like that. And these were kids that I would bring over across the bay that have never seen the San Rafael Bridge. They never saw the bridge. They live like 3 miles
a mile from it. Yeah.
And they're just there. That's their block that they live. So, I mean, I just think if you want to get rid of all that type of stuff, we should grab these kids and then ship them out, freaking
travel them.
So I give them a job, bring them, put them on a farm, do some stuff, go become a wrangler, just get them out of the environment.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. And also, like, you'll find it with even people that can travel that don't, and like their small, narrow world. And you're like, dude, you need to get out. You need to meet more people that aren't you and that don't have your exact beliefs every day, because you're just wasting away doing nothing. It's like you're hating on people that you don't even know. You don't like these groups of people. You don't like this country. Like, you've never been there. You don't know these people. How the fuck are you going to make those judgments?
It's kind of like you sit there and you're on TV or whatever. You're talking to you and I right now, and then somebody's going to go, I don't like that guy. Okay. Or I like that guy. You don't even know the guy. Last thing, you can't take 15 an hour. There's no way you know that person. But there are some people that say, that guy's a jerk. Well,
maybe you just had a bad day at your last run.
I can't say he's a jerk because I really never hung out with him. I really don't know who he is. I mean, we don't take time. I like to take time to get. That's one thing that COVID. Like our neighbors, our little pod that we had in our community. We had about 8 of us that got together all the time, right? Because we knew we were, not sick. We knew we weren't really going anywhere at that period of time, and so we had lunch and we did dinners and we did entertainment and we had movie nights and we talked stories like we're talking right now, and it actually opened up our eyes to other people that and we became much better friends. Like when I talk about tonight, when I said I was going to make friends, that's what it is. I mean, the last 15 months, every Wednesday night we went to dinner. Whether it was at our house or their house, and now we can go to a restaurant. Woo!
Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you from your dinner, and I want to say thank you so much for just taking the time. And I could listen to these stories all day. I mean, that's like the Grateful Dead, Bill Graham, Day on the Green, concerts in general, live music. It's just such an amazing world to me, and I owe that to the Grateful Dead. Like I owe them, a debt that I can never repay, because it literally changed the course of my life. You know what I mean? But just to talk to someone who was literally there. I mean, you're tackling Led Zeppelin's road manager. I mean, that's pretty fucking great, dude. That's really solid, dude. But yeah, I just want to say thanks, and really appreciate it.
I appreciate it too, anytime, and it was a pleasure talking to you.